This week, the Australian government decided to stand with the likes of Iran and Afghanistan in calling for what it described as a sustainable ceasefire in Gaza. No demand for the return of hostages, no mention or condemnation in that vote for Hamas, a weak decision that has been rightly condemned by many. Bassam Eid is a Jerusalem-based political analyst, human rights pioneer and expert commentator in Arab and Palestinian affairs. Eid was born in the Jordanian-occupied Old City in East Jerusalem and spent the first 33 years of his life in the United Nations refugee camp of Sufat. He rose to prominence during the First Intifada and in 1996 founded the Jerusalem-based Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group. In 2016, Eid assumed the role of chairman of the Centre for Near East Policy Research. And for full and somewhat repeated disclosure, I visited the West Bank and Israel this year under the Ajax Rambam program. It was during this program, which included time in Ramallah and other parts of the disputed territories, that I met Bassam Eid, and he joins me now. Bassam, welcome to the show and thank you for your time.
Good morning, thank you.
First of all, to your response, if I may ask you to Australia's vote for a ceasefire in Gaza and the wording of that ceasefire vote in the UN this week. What's your response to that?
See, looks like, unfortunately, that countries like the Australia or the Canadian didn't understand exactly the meaning of the ceasefire and what is the definition of the ceasefire. Listen, we witnessed in the past 16 years, since the Hamas occupied the Gaza Strip, we witnessed several ceasefires which has been achieved between Israel and the Hamas, and none of them really works as it should be. In my opinion, is such kind of resolution, which is the United Nations right now, trying to put it out, should have to include three important elements. The first one, the Hamas should laying down their weapons. The second one, the accountable to the terrorists, which is committed the massacre on the October 7th. And the third is the release of the all hostages, including the IDF members. If the United Nations will include these three conditions in their resolution, I have no problem, probably to vote for. But if those three conditions will completely being outside the resolution, I don't think that such resolution should have to be supported or voted for any country around the world.
In your opinion, Bassam Eid, why does the UN neglect to include such important conditions in any call for a ceasefire? It seems to be the most basic thing under the sun, and yet those conditions, which I think most reasonable people would agree should form part of any deal for a ceasefire. Why does the UN continually fail to include those conditions?
It's for a very simple reason. In the 21st century, the main aim and the main job of the United Nations is how to create conflicts rather than to solve conflicts. Because the UN knows if the conflicts around the world will be solved, then all the employees of the United Nations will become jobless and refugees. Secondly, I think that the United Nations right now became a part of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict rather than a part of the solution. I think that the international community right now should have to stand up and, first of all, to start making their own accountability with the UN. Why the UN is not only hates Israel, but also teaching the Palestinian students how to hate and how to be violent and how to reject the others. This is the one of the most important issues that I think that the international community should have to put it on the table before any kind of resolutions.
It's a really, really critical point, particularly in light of the last couple of weeks when we have seen vision coming out of parts of Gaza that have been captured, and we've seen, members of Hamas teaching in these schools. We've seen the curriculum is a very generous word to describe it. You've spent 26 years researching UN policies. You've written extensively on the topic of UNRWA reform. As you just said, there needs to be greater scrutiny here on behalf of the West. What is the likelihood of that happening, do you think?
See, I think that the only one who should have to be blamed here is the international community by themselves. You know, the UN is surviving from the donations and from the support of the international community. And the international community should have, from time to time, to make their own accountability on the activities of the United Nations, mainly on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But looks like to me that the United Nations became a completely independent organization, that no country around the world has the right to interfere in their work, and looks like that they have a free hand to do whatever they want without paying, let's say, any kind of price for the horrible things that they are doing on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
This is such an important point. One other thing I wanted to ask you, Bassem, it is that I've read a lot of commentary in the past 2 months that basically says, and it's my paraphrase here, that the West doesn't understand Hamas. It doesn't understand the level of extremism at play here. I want to get your take on firstly that, but also what is your view on this global pro-Palestine movement in the wake of October 7 that doesn't seem to, understand the history here, the fact that Hamas has repeatedly said, not only are we happy with what we did, not only is this a day of celebration for us, but we will repeat it over and over again until Israel is wiped off the map and the Jewish people with it. What is it about this that the West is missing?
I think that it will be very difficult for the West to understand what does it mean, the Hamas, and what does it mean, the Islamic extremism and fundamentalism. I think that the West is very close to start suffering from those people like the Hamas and like the ISIS, and only when those terrorist organizations, will touch the body of the West, then the West probably will wake up and start making their own measures how to deal with such kind of terrorist organizations. Right now, looks like that everything is far away from us, if it is from Paris or the UK or Belgium or whatever. But very soon, these people are going to be under the track, and when these people will become under the track, I believe that the pain will be so high, and then probably these people will start fighting and standing together with Israel in terms to erase such kind of terrorist organizations from the map all over the world.
Bassem, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your time.